there. Hail and welcome. My name is Rohanna Irene, and I would tell you that I'm super excited to be here, but I'm super nervous to be here, actually. I have been teaching esoteric and occult studies, tarot, Wicca, astrology, and pretty much anything in between for the last 15 years or so. I started training as a priestess in the early 2000s and got ordained as a high priestess. And then I trained with the Hermetic Order, the Golden Dawn. So I started with earth magic, and then I did high magic, and then I kind of meshed it. And as I think a lot of people from my generation sort of started creating our own, traditions. And a long time has passed in between there and now. And the question is, what am I doing here right now? Well, there's a couple things I wanted to do with the channel. First and foremost, I know that there's some great contributors and creators here on YouTube already that are talking about similar topics. So I certainly am not looking to step on anybody's toes. That being said, twofold reason of being here. First one is for the pure sake of transparency, and I promise that is what I'm going to try to provide on this channel as long as I have it going. That's what I started with on the podcast, and then I think in time it'll kind of mesh back and forth. It was easier to do the podcast first because, hey, nobody can see you. But I'll get used to it. I got used to that and get used to this. You can do anything you put your mind to. And with that in mind, I have an 11-year-old. He turned 11 yesterday, and he has wanted to be a podcaster ever since kindergarten. And his teachers have told him year after year after year. And not just him, his friends. Like every one of his friends wants to be a podcaster or a YouTuber or some variation in between. I think more YouTubers, though. Podcasting is probably a little bit older of a genre. He has been working at it, though, for years. And I told him a couple years ago, I said, you're going to have you have to write and you have to read and you have to have topics and you have to do this and you have to do that. And I started putting all these limits on it because I wanted him to understand that this dream that he had was really big and really out there. And it doesn't necessarily mean that's something that he can, make a living off of. And, it's kind of the same thing when I was a kid and I wanted to be an anthropologist. So nobody ever actually gave me this talk. But I've heard other people say it, where they said that they wanted to be something specific and they were either told that they couldn't do it or they were told all the reasons why it wouldn't work. And so they said, hey, you need to have a backup plan. Well, as a mom, I'm a really big proponent of a backup plan. But as a witch, I wouldn't say that to a first-year student. I wouldn't say, oh, that's what you want to do? Well, you know what? You should have a backup plan because that might not be a good idea. No, I would never say that. So I questioned. I was like, why am I saying that to my kid? Why am I saying it just because the teachers are saying it? I unschooled, which is a very loose version of homeschooling with my oldest son until he was in high school. And so situations changed when my youngest son was born. And then his dad and I got a divorce. I mean, he lives a couple doors down. We still get along, but mistakes were made. And so we had to do our own thing kind of for a while and get that all sorted out. So I just didn't have the place or the stability to be able to do this unschooling thing. And so I put him in public school, and it was from day one that they were like, no, I don't think you can do that. Where he has unrealistic goals. He just says he's very, during kindergarten and first grade, he was just really into, what was it? Sans, papyrus, it's Undertale. And he would talk about this game all the time. And then it went to Five Nights at Freddy. And now I want to say it's Friday Night Funkin'. It's so hard to stay up on it. And then also some anime. So his interests have changed through the years, but the goal of wanting to be a YouTuber hasn't changed. And so, I kind of stopped and I remembered that this might not be his end all career. And he's still young to be making that decision. But it really outlines how much things are changing, not just for the younger generation, but also for younger witches, for people that are coming into the craft right now. They're facing a lot of the same challenges that my son's facing when he's going to school. And I can look at that from a classroom setting and I can say, wait a minute, there's a trend here. Because the truth of the matter is if we look at just 20 years ago and how we were teaching these classes, if I look at 30 years ago, and I look at it when I was in school and how I was being taught on the academic level, and then I look at how I was taught on the Wiccan and the spiritual level, and just how information's changed, how information's processed, how our subcultures are changing from one generation to the next so quickly. And it's like, it's almost like when I'm looking at it from a parent that the teachers aren't keeping up. And so since they're not keeping up and the parents are just doing kind of what the teachers say, it's like, well, who's running the show here? Wait a minute. This is my kid. Oh no, this is my responsibility. Well then indeed. So the first and foremost reason I was here is because I promised my son I would support him. So the only way I know how to do that is I need to get familiar with this whole YouTube thing and being on camera so I can give him the right support and the tips and tricks and things that he's going to need to know beyond me. Or at least, you know what, worst case scenario, it might even, you know what, I'm not going to say like in 10 years that things aren't going to change because they've changed drastically. And we're going to get into the changes. We're going to get into the new scape of magic and the occult in the modern century. That's one of the biggest things that I've been pushing lately in my own studies. And I definitely on my next video, I'm going to go through that and kind of where we're at and sort of try to get the podcast and the channel here to sort of meet in the middle. So we're not having too much overlap. Plus, what's really cool about it, even though I'm like, you know, kind of nervous being on here, what's really cool about having a YouTube channel is that, well, A, you know, you can see me. So when I do have to explain things, I'm not just randomly, you know, and then throwing it on the blog later and hoping that, you know, like your brain connects what I'm talking about. So I do hope to be able to use this channel for teaching purposes and for references. And I don't know why I didn't think about it before. For over 20 years, in one way, shape, or form, there are answers that I have repeatedly answered. Year in and year out. And then year in and year out. And over and over and over and over. Why don't I just record something? Then I can say, here's your link, please go watch, and then we can discuss it. I guess it's a novel idea. I'm sure other people have done it already. I wish I would have thought about it, but hey, I thought about it now. I sat down after I decided that I was going to do my best to support my son. I watched a lot of the shows that he was watching at the time. He was watching, you know, like family game shows. I can't think of the one name of it, but it's like a dad and then his kids, and they all play video games. You guys do not want to watch me play video games. Maybe Fallout 4, but then you're going to like, why is she using bats all the time? Why is she reliant on grenades and sniper rifle? Because I can't shoot first person. It's not my jam. I didn't play anything other than a Nintendo, like a Wii or GameCube, until I was like 34. So when it comes to like actual like interaction, no, I get my ass kicked and I'm competitive. So that's a really bad double whammy. So I just kind of stuck with things that I was good at. And that's about me. That's a little bit of a trend that we'll probably talk about when we go and, you know, go over my chart. But I don't want to talk everything about me right now. I just wanted to sort of put everything out there. I have been putting just some of the videos, like a couple months ago, I put them up there. And I'm like, you know, if I'm going to do it, I have to do it. This is the hardest thing. And, you know, I look at the kids and my son and his friends. They're like, can we have a channel yet? Can we go start recording for YouTube? Can we do it? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, you have to be 13, I think, to have your own channel, don't you? And then I go look at the guidelines again. And then my son's like, well, are you doing your channel yet, Mom? I'm like, I'm doing a podcast. You want to help me with my podcast? And he's like, yeah, that's lame. I'm like, that's not lame. It's got a cool name. It's Mage Against the Machine. It's like the government is the machine. The rich elite are the man. They're trying to keep you down and you have magic. You have power. You have power. Use your power. And then he's not impressed. And then I feel old. But that being said, I still like the name. On here, I'm going as Rohanna Irene because it's my name for all magic-y purposes. And, you know, all those things that I told people not to do when I was doing marketing, I kind of ended up doing myself. So it's kind of been a threefold experiment. And, you know, it's trying to make the best out of a situation, trying to do the best that I can in a situation, and, you know, just trying to prove that it can be done. I don't expect a bunch of people to come in and listen to everything that I have to say, but I already do have some resources, and I have ways that I can use this channel. And if people come along, and if you do find the channel and you want to subscribe, I hear that's really important. That'd be cool. I also have well, not just me. There's a group of us that we have our learning library, which is Hydrophant on Facebook. And that's kind of where we do our group class, non-formal classrooms. And we also do some of the catch-up classrooms. So we have like study groups usually once or twice a month, depending on what's, like what topics are going on. And if anybody ever has any requests, I know like towards the end of spring and the early of summer, we were doing what started out to be a tarot course. But then I started talking about tarot topics and correspondences, and I was doing the podcast at the time, and everyone's like, well, how does that connect? And that's when I really started like, what do you mean, how does that connect? And then we've had a whole different conversation about the elements and correspondences, and apparently I was talking like gibberish, because they're like, what do you mean is air and water? Water's feelings? What does water have to do with feelings? I don't understand. I was like, oh man, what happened? Because I've taught a tarot class like most years since I was, in my early 20s, and I've always started off with, we need to go back to basic stuff. But why don't you guys have basic stuff? And then they're like, well, I just got into this witchcraft thing like a year ago, maybe, I don't know. And so there's an influx of new individuals, new types of minds that are being applied, new people that are just being woken up to realize, holy crud, we have our own power. And I want to do whatever I can to support that. That's always been my goal, is to support people that are trying to learn, to increase personal accountability through self-mastery. And I think that both high and earth magic definitely have the ability to do that. I think there's a lot to be said that they are very similar to psychology, like a little too eerily similar. That is definitely a topic that we are going to have to talk about. But there's lots of topics to talk about. There's lots of topics to talk about, and there's little edits that will be done to this channel. I will tell you that right now. I just made a flub. It's going to stay in there because I have this huge learning curve, and I don't want anything to be messy, but I do want it to be real, and I want it to be transparent as can be. And I am trying to get as close to an in-person correspondence feeling that we can get. I want people to be able to reach out to me. I want them to be able to have discussions. I don't want it to be this distance between the two of us and learning. I really like to utilize the learning library on Facebook. Like I said, I'll put the link on that. It's called Hydrophant because things aren't streamlined yet, but we have about a little over 100 people on there. So, I mean, there's people, if you have questions, there's books and PDFs, and we find the hard to find ones, we get them downloaded on there for you. And that's why it was a learning library, because people wanted resources, and we don't want to steal them, so we had to find ones like people literally could borrow, like a library. It's gotten a little easier now, because the internet has dragged up a lot of like really old texts that, predate the popular authors from the 90s and the early 2000s. So we can just go back to our basics and look back at those sources, and then we can start to piece together the history. But as I've been even doing that, like that's so convoluted. So this whole project became this huge project of looking into self-mastery practices beyond just what we've been served up in the last 20 years. So beyond, even Silver Ravenwolf before her, beyond Scott Cunningham, Raymond Buckland, Raven Gramassi, Don Michael Craig, if you want to go the other way with it, and Starhawk, Z Budapest, all that era that brought together paganism as we know it today. And even before that, we can go through the texts now, Gerald Gardner's texts. Last night with the full moon, I was looking at Drawing Down the Moon by Doreen Valentine, and I was talking to another one of the students on the learning library, and I was like, well, no, haven't you seen this one? And then we were talking about, different practices and stuff. And so a lot of the concepts for training are still there. Like even when I started my training, it was very much based off mentorship, participation, and accountability through action. And I mean, I think that's why I had to push myself. And, I'm sure this first recording is going to be a little bit like choppy. I mean, I have my script and I have my stuff and I've practiced, but wow. But once you get it done, it's getting easier. We'll get there, and we will have awesome conversations, and we will discuss how things used to be done. And then I'm sure somebody will come on here and tell me how it's done now. We will agree to disagree on Bob Dobbs. Not fan. Discordian. I have a love-hate relationship. I will definitely talk about that. And I'm sure some people can school me. I'm welcome to it. I'm a firm believer that all teachers are students. Our teachers are students, and it all goes back and forth because you're supposed to learn from your students as much as your students are supposed to learn from you. It's a symbiotic relationship. So, what? It takes a village. We're all here with a purpose. Magic is real. You have the power within you. The power is yours. Thundercats or go. All right. Well, I am going to leave it right there. I'm going to update our blog, and I'll put all the links in the notes since this is my first one, and we'll get everything together. And next week, within the next week, we will have our first official recording on Rohanna Irene and Mage Against the Machine. Okay, I'm going to work on streamlining that in the meantime. But for now, it was great talking to you. I'm glad to be here. And first step is the hardest. But now, moving forward, let's open the dialogue about paganism, the occult, magic, and all of those topics to work on our self-mastery and to dig deep within the mystery and the history of Western Hermeticism and magic with a K, that kind of magic. Yeah, we'll go over everything. All right, well, thanks for listening to me. My name is Rohanna Irene. The podcast is Mage Against the Machine. The learning library is Hydrophant. Look for all the links below. And hey, you know, it'd be really cool if I can go back and tell my kid, be like, I got a subscriber. I got 2. Oh, what? Okay. Subscribe, like. You're awesome. Blessed be.